Hi, and welcome to this little quiz called Spot the Mistakes. Why are we having this little quiz? Well, it's a bit of fun, isn't it? But also, there are lots of people across the world wanting to write down music because they're composers or arrangers, and sometimes they're not entirely sure about how to go about dealing with one or two details. So it might be quite a fun thing to have a go at this quiz, but also it might be helpful in just focusing on one or two of the things that maybe sometimes go wrong when we write down music. So have a look at this 4-bar tune that I've put on the board. And one thing you might want to do in a moment is just to pause the film and have a look through and see how many mistakes you can spot. See the things that you're really confident about correcting. See the things that you think, well, there might be something wrong with that, but I'm not entirely sure. And then at the end, you'll also see anything that you missed. So have a look through, and when you're ready, you can pause, have a look through, then come back to me. Okay, how did you get on? I bet you've found quite a few mistakes there, haven't you? Well, let's have a look. I'll put a fresh stave underneath here, and then we can go through and decide what was wrong with it. Because at one level, it sort of looks reasonably all right, doesn't it, at face value? I wonder what the first thing is that you notice. It's in relation to the treble clef. Now the clef, though I say it myself, is quite well drawn, so there's nothing really wrong with the clef, but there is something wrong with the position of the clef. Now, there's a treble clef. It's sometimes known as a G clef, because the purpose of the treble clef, or the G clef, is to show us where G is on the stave. So when we write a treble clef, it's important that we wrap it around the G line, the second line up. So drawing a treble clef means that we should position it like that. So you see what this is doing? This is telling us that the third line of the stave is G, which of course is completely wrong. So the clef is giving us useless information. So first thing we need to correct is the positioning of the treble clef. So there you go. Okay, is there anything wrong with the time signature? 3/4, well, it means there are 3 crotchet beats in a bar. I'm looking through the piece, and actually in most bars there are 3 crotchet beats. Not all, we'll come to that later. But 3/4, nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, then we've got a key signature. And there's an F sharp. Well, if we're dealing with sharps, then the first sharp that we come across is F sharp, so that seems perfectly reasonable. If it's F sharp, the piece of music should be in G major or in E minor. Well, it starts on G, it finishes on G, it hasn't got any other accidentals, so it does look as if it's probably in G major. So there's nothing wrong with the F sharp, or is there? Well, first of all, this F sharp ought to be positioned an octave higher. It's a funny one, this, isn't it? Because you think, well, what difference does it make, really? And the answer is not a lot. But there's a convention that says that when we write the first sharp, we always write it high in the clef. So if you're dealing with the treble clef, the alto clef, or the bass clef, your first sharp, the F sharp, should be high in the clef. It's worth noting that if you're dealing with a tenor clef, that's the only clef in which the F sharp is low in the clef. So low for tenor clef, high for everybody else. The other thing is that the convention again is that the key signature comes before the time signature. Here we've got them round the wrong way, and that's a very common mistake that people make. Here's a way of remembering it. The girl's name, Katie, K-T. K for key signature, T for time signature. So if you remember KT instead of T cake, you'll be all right. So we need the F sharp at the top of the stave, and we need that ahead of the time signature. So there's the F sharp, there's the time signature. So you can see just before we even get to the first note, there are a few things that were adrift there. Okay, let's now look at the notes. Well, the first note looks pretty okay to me actually, so I think we can keep that as it is. There's the G for a dotted crotchet. The A that follows looks pretty good to me, so we might as well keep that as it stands. The B and the C at the end of the bar. Well, those two quavers come inside beat number 3. So there's no reason why they can't be joined together or beamed together, as we say. So let's join them together. But while we're doing that, let's think about the direction of the stems. When you have a note on the middle line, the stem can go up or it can go down. Once you've got notes above the middle line, well, the stem should really go down. Once you've got notes below the middle line, the stem should go up. So this stem for the C at the end should definitely be going down. The B could be either way. So on balance, the stem should go down. So let's beam them together, and there we go. Along comes a bar line, nothing wrong with a bar line. Then there's a minim D, nothing wrong with that, so that's okay. Then when I look at this next note, I'm thinking, well, there's nothing really wrong with the B, but there's something wrong with the rhythm in this bar, isn't there? Because this bar, as it stands, contains only 2.5 beats. So really, probably the answer is that this B shouldn't be a quaver, should be a crotchet. All right, another bar line. Then I'm looking at this next note thinking this note has not been very well drawn, has it? It's kind of mostly in the 3rd space, but it's kind of also overlapping onto the 3rd line. So is it C, is it B? It's not entirely clear, is it? But it does look on balance as if it should be C. So when we draw our notes, be really sure when we have a note in a space that it kind of absolutely sits inside the space. And when you have a note on a line, it absolutely sits so the middle of the note is where the line is. Then it's crystal clear what we're doing. Okay, we've got 3 beats in this bar, so that's good, isn't it? You might have noticed in the light of what we were saying earlier on, the stem direction is now incorrect for the next note. So that A should have a stem going up because it's sitting below the middle line. You might have noticed something else that's wrong with that note. Have you noticed the stem is going down on the right-hand side of the note? There's a little convention. When the stem goes down, it should be on the left-hand side of the note. When the stem goes up, it should be on the right-hand side of the note. So that's dealt with that one while we're at it. Okay, into the last bar. Now, something slightly more complicated going on with the rhythm, so let's have a little think about this. Dotted quaver, that's going to be worth 3/4 of a beat. We're following that with a semi-quaver that's worth 1/4 of a beat. So 3/4 plus 1/4, well, that's 1 beat, isn't it? So both those notes sit inside the first beat of the bar, so they should be beamed together. So we'll take care of that. You might also notice this dot is in a rather strange place. Because the note is here, the dot should be in the same space. So when you write a note in a space, the dot goes in the same space. When you write a note on a line, the dot should go in the space just above the line so we can see it. If you put the dot on the line, quite difficult to see. So when it's a space, same space for the dot. When it's a line, the space above the line for the dot. Okay, we'll take care of the dot and we'll also beam these first 2 notes together, and then they will look like this. So that's what should be going on there. I'm looking at the next note now saying, well, hang on, if this takes up the first beat of the bar, then there are 2 beats left. Should that really be a dotted crotchet? No, should be a minim. And then we've got 3 beats in that bar. So there's the minim to finish the piece. And then there's a bar line. Now, assuming that this is the end of the piece, which I am for this purpose, are we happy with a single bar line, or do we need a double bar line? Lots of people, when they come to the end of a piece, forget to write the double bar line. So there we are. Same piece of music, but with all those mistakes corrected. Now you can do your own sort of score and work out how many you got there. If you found all of those mistakes and corrected them, then congratulations, that's absolutely fantastic. And you're obviously really safe with all of this. If you got some of them, that's great. If you missed any, well, here's an opportunity just to think about the things that you missed. And it should just help to kind of fine tune the writing down of music. So if you're someone who writes down music, composes, arranges, enjoy it to the full. And I hope that's been a useful little quiz.